Oh, yeah. Good
morning, Katrina. Thanks for your translation. And welcome to everyone online. We'll begin with some motivations and prayers, and you can find the link for that in the chat box.
To the teacher in death and son and destroyer, one plus God, for destroyer, completely and fully awakened one, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, one not to bliss, nor the world's supreme guide, beings to be tamed. Teacher of gods and humans, to you, the Buddha in death and son and destroyer, glorious conqueror, Shakyamuni, I prostrate to make offerings and go for refuge. When, O supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you paid 7 strides and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise, then I bow. With pure body its form supremely fine, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner the best, supreme guide, to you I bow. With the supreme science, face like the spotless moon, color like gold, to you I bow. You are immaculate, the 3 worlds are not incomparable, wise one, to you I bow. Great, compassionate, protector, all-knowing teacher, the only merit and good qualities, vast as an ocean to the thought, I bow. Through purity, freeing from attachment, through virtue, freeing from lower realms. Unique, supreme, ultimate reality, to the Dharma that is peace I bow. Having freed themselves, showing the path, the freedom too well established in the trainings. The holy field, endowed with good qualities, to the Sangha I bow. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind completely, this is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a mirage, a flame, a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew, a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see conditioned things as such. Through this merit may sentient beings attain the state of all seeing, subdue the full faults, and be delivered from the ocean of psychic existence perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. This ground anointed with perfume, flowers strewn Mount Meru, for the sun and moon, imagined as a Buddha land and offered to you. May all beings enjoy this pure land. Venerable holy gurus, in the space of your true body, from billowing clouds of your wisdom and love, let fall the rain of the profound and extensive Dharma, in whatever form is suitable for subduing sentient beings. Idam Gururam Namandalakam Niryatayami. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create, by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create, by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create, by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings.
Oh, yeah, that is. Oh, yeah.
Nixon again,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, oh, yeah, dear. Sanjay Chum did it, though. Jashir become Sungutwa. Question. Sisum Meda, don't get in the rush. Shiba comes some Sungura, there comes some me comes. Comes some quag. Quag on getting Medra Sumyora. Dengamche, Sungamche, Sumikam, Garazu, Dengam Kitara. Sisum Meta. O di Samatam Jeti, Midabas, Sisum Meta, Dengate in the Dras. Oh, Tennis, Garazu, Nation Jitendi Sigura, Sira or Kangimla Soba. Oh, Tennis, Tetu Samatam Jetia, Midaware, Sora, Sisum Meta, Nation Jitendi. Jishina Chela Soba, the Chicken Tamindora, Desert Sigura. O tiene de Sisumida. Denge tindandas, Kumida, Keji Keji in Juandunge. Dembu Menge, Ite Menge, Raw. Sisumida, Denge tindanda. Denge tindi. Lunda tindin Jue Wanga could lubur to Chichayang with any Kadina lubur to Chijura. When the Sisumida, Denge tindandas. Nurging Jidentisungura. Many Sumida Denge tindanda. Due Kichi. Kala tata sus. Tatile Negeng drawing around Mita. Dundula soba sim yonggen kirik, soa tidu yonggen kirik shiwara, o tizu kanga sungwara. Dhoya kichi, kiene kashe mile ki, lala ki, lama ile ki, dundula ki, ro yang tene chipu ne yang shenda chili ki, nyeba ki yomara, soso rawa ki yomara. Le da nyemu be shawa karesa, le karesa ina tila kien karitena, ti wanda doni kiwanda medalen kuwara. Dhoya kichi kala tata sus. Dogatam condition when it is ready. Pindi, Dre Kishi Kala Tata so. Dre Centros. Taco Kyo Samburji Langina. Kyo the using Buzi Tekuyara. Kyo Nembashi Langina, think of what's all Shandashili Kyokura. In a tea on being never Kyomara. Dre Centros, using Bushing Aras Medicina. Say using Bushi Tegu some yorite. Tite to Ekyomara. Dre Centros. Namkelo than us. A color to John a Koran, so the ranking Angi Judu, this were Namgelo the Korangi Angi Judu, Lubur to Chichun and Lubur to Fanchi, you are ranking on Namgelo that. The reserve Bamjushi to Tianco, the Echi Omar, Soya Matochi, could Sondra Matochi, reserve Chudiman, Dondogade Mato Teletos, Dedma, Dresseke Omaraco. Sets on the words or at and Soviet social control don't do it, matter. Did the Hesi lost the Heske or Mara, do it send to Namge Mare. Reserve Babjushin to New Draws. Oh, yeah, what is your Mount Riches? That is it.
So here, as the Buddha, the Bhagavan, has stated in a sutra called the Extensive Sport or Extensive Play Sutra, he says, these three realms are like autumn clouds. So the beings who inhabit this are like actors in a play. Their life span is like flashingly short, like a flash of lightning, and is continuously exhausting, sort of like a mountain waterfall. So here, the three realms, here referring to the desire, the material, and the immaterial realms, and we being in the desire realm, these are all impermanent. The kind of container world, the world within which we live, our environment, our abodes, and so forth, that container world is impermanent. It's something that changes moment to moment in the way that autumn clouds will gather, like when the winds are right, but they quickly disperse, dissipate. So this is something that is brought about by the winds, but it's not very stable. And so too, our external environment, the world within which we live, is something that is impermanent, changing moment to moment. And those beings who inhabit it, the kinds of various types of beings, sometimes we're humans, sometimes we're gods, sometimes demigods, sometimes born in the lower realms, they're sort of like actors in a play, right? We are subject to taking rebirth due to the force of our our afflictions. Whatever kinds of karma that we have created due to our afflictions propels our future rebirths. And we sort of are like shifting parts, shifting positions like actors in a play. We are not remaining the same. And so too, if we are born in, say, a good rebirth as a human or a god, we hope and pray that that will be a long rebirth, that we will remain there for a long time. And if we were to be born in the lower realms, we hope that that will quickly be passed over, that it will quickly end. But really, the life of beings is like a flash of lightning. It's something that disintegrates from its own cause. It doesn't need some sort of external cause to come about, but is something that is, by its very nature, impermanent, is just like a flash, and then it is gone, no matter how much we might want to remain within a certain life. And so it's the case that our lifespan is sort of like always constantly being exhausted, constantly being used up, in the way that a mountain waterfall is quickly going downhill. The kind of life, no matter how much we might want to hold on to it, is something that is quickly disappearing right beneath us. So as this verse says, again, this kind of container world, these three realms are like autumn clouds, impermanent. And the beings within them are sort of like actors in a play whose lifespan is like a flash of lightning, constantly being exhausted like a mountain stream going quickly downhill. Oh yeah, again.
Oh yeah, no this one. Oh, the end of the oh yeah. Oh, the curse what is na. So nay in and what is so nay in and so to talk to the Monday was a tangy so that she some yora. Oh, this some nation you to a Marako Kawakawan to show the cash. Kawakawa later, Penangatsu Chashan, America to a lady some little Ming Mato Kayomara. Yambo watching a cheat, so Tambu yesterday. Teaching Dogo Yori. That that's the quay tea come by the Kanga Yang, Yomari Tongwaton Yasari, Shixari, Melchari. What in a she? Yan Lumbush and that's less one Javado, she lets you say. Yan the watching it to Dole. The Kura leg covered stand with the toilet mother. Chili attended and get a Omara. She in the Kune in the Kadena. Longula Sobakanga, Treasure in some song. Jigbe Cheshe, Kitchi in Juanto. Narazu to shoot the tongues in the water, tuned in this sigua. And they do the Mamba Tanash in some such order, till it tongues this water. You made the Tanda years, Tanda the Mamba again in some tea tongues this water. Or tea won't get any Cheshimambu to any shit you may get some Suretanje. Pay Shimogo, the Domogo, the Chineta, Degdo Akuyanka, Tikanja Legachura. Susunejing one at the Garina. Teta soso tidu nyongeji soza, tidu den rao yewa soza, ene ko ngone neju di kare tewa tunge kade yoye bati samutang kuwara. Soso sambada shen yoye mardo. Oti de mitabo neta inenda, lu inenda, longju inenda. Rwa, oti zu tsama. Tanda yewa nashi tenge me sam, tia keshi gen juwa chi yuwara. O keshi gen juwa chi nendo te yuwe sam, te samba ene ko tangzi che ne. Zang de xiju mege te be zambuli dina le nimane te tanda te yin samsa ro o tinde samlu de mena wene ko tangma dewe chuchen jigbe chuchen o tinde chi samlu kore na ne te le shenja de shukshun do ra so so lu den de kanga shenja shukshur ko nege lu choye den de ko yar chire do ra de se che ko ra tendu de chine ko ra de se de se che do de se de ko ra o tende ko nega lu choye tendo ne da lu de long ju la so te zu kanga ko ye jire te zam ji yin sam sa sam ko na ne ya ti pa sa ye de kar so de ti don da le ti pa sa ye da chi tin de ma bu chen do do ra ma o ti chi lam na ma de
So here, the meaning of this is whatever our sort of abode or the place that we live in, we often have this sense of, oh, I'll always be here, or this is something that is really permanent, that will remain unchanging. But this is obviously not the case. Like for those, like for example, me who was born in Tibet, you know, you have this sense of like, oh, my house, this is my abode, my place, I'll always be here. Well, that's not the case. That's like probably completely empty and destroyed. And so too, then you get carried by your karma to other different places. And these are all sort of impermanent. The abode, the place where we live, the things that we enjoy are all impermanent, are changing, disintegrating moment to moment. And we are subject to sort of following after the karma that we have created. So one of the worst afflictions we have is this grasping at permanence, this idea that, oh, well, I'm going to have this, I'm going to just still be here, right? We make all kinds of plans with this thought that our abode, our body, our enjoyments and possessions are permanent, as if they weren't going to change and disintegrate. But yet it is the case that that is the reality. They are going to disintegrate. They are disintegrating moment to moment. And so rather than grasping at those phenomena as being permanent somehow, we need to think about our future happiness and suffering and creating the kind of causes that will bring that about. Those are the experiences that we have yet to come into contact with. We are changing, though, our own body, the place where we live, the things we enjoy, moment to moment to moment. And although we might have this sense of, oh, like, well, what I have now, that's going to remain, it's not really the case. If we can come to recognize that these are all perishable phenomena, disintegrating moment to moment, we can reduce some of the kind of clinging towards our abode, our body, our possessions. And when we recognize that, well, temporarily, yes, we need to sustain our body for the purpose of using it for a particular kind of goal, we won't be so attached to it, so much clinging to it, if we recognize that we are all sort of subject to this kind of destruction, subject to impermanence, and we can't cling to things as though they are going to remain forever.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, what do you do sort of? Oh, tennis, that sort of Maumba condition on my own day. Tanda condition or the Maumba condition do there. This is somebody go to the jail rally in Yungura. To the jail at any Yungura, mother, asking over to Yeshi Omar, someone at Kujinshi Kugura. Oh, dear Nungarazo, Joshima. Sit down and over Koran. Chilo over the China. Method the China, 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 Karina. Ko Junchi dead, ko Yundu, method China, ko Tambuchun, Shatene, Chambushatene, Pisan de Shayan, Tamniachi, Geshe, dead. Detain a coach in Juachi Sing does not tell him to be in a corridor in a chick. Could you just Junchi dead, Yora? Without bother, Kitchen, Yora. The Yina Kokanga. Some imagination could ask the one Junchi days the one. Tina Shingarazo, Lu in a cool Lukoran Junchi do de Yora. Toma Mevanechi Junchi Yungi or the Pame Yaya Zita. Garazo Lulea, Chashetilea, Mimbet Bambuki, Chashet is my teacher Yongdo. That than she. No, Tenica soda. No, but sometimes just in a shida. In the Joshima Yabuda to be on the echo, good and kill to Yora. The Judy Korada Timbe Juji or Mother Jumani care Yomara. As a jumping by Mima, that Sunday on my mother Javali, jumping by Yora. Could you manage your killing Yordo? Nobutambu Chichu says, Ritama Titama say Yomar, Koralubu to Chichuares, to Yomares, Sigara. Saganzu. Too many Chunako Katrina Yonsora. Too many Debutini, Judy Mesa Kangalia and Debuti Keshoda. Tichio Mara Kashel, Kashel Mechitico, Judy Yona, you said like a message like Memusum to Tonguangaras. Or the Educa Soda. Choosing Ibaduku Yore. There are too many Kigio Mare. Nick Judy a dog bundle of six. Number Judy talk one of she someone who wants you get with 6 and a tiggy, they were confusion at the end of today, young Mara. 소소소 그 데부터다 틈베 주티도 용갱이 강사되게 제단을 때는 그 데부티도 연구를 마도 현다질 때는 내가 제단을 때는 소소 마음바 상마 연구는 연가심부라 진짜게려 말도 어때인데 마음바데 간데 연마이도 소소 끌어라 그래 어때인데 틈베죠 라라라래 그래서 어때인데 랑게 고슴 샹라 사와파 페바토에 로 메시데 야보지 치다 틈베 깨르이네 소소 체딜레 소소 끼바로 콘디션가 제충가 차도충가 드레싱충가 밀타다이네 카셰 드라스 카셰 인세 마무마세나 데데지른가 고 상마 타다니데 드레 상무 메베체 상마 교환돌라 동에 메데베 간자레 삼두시식 돈에 내베네 소소에 끼바 디원게 쫄람게 돈에 샹리아 너바다 드레 메시고 체딜레랑 떼어용 거라 샹라 때에 줄도 거라 어딘데 전에는 마음 받을래 단다 야구 제버되게 내부들래 때는 마음 벌래 되어용 거래 샹라 너바 제사와 제버되게 내부되게 샹라 요한아시랑게 마음 벌래 용 거래 세거라 어디질라네 마음도서
So, here, as far as what will come about in the future and even what we are experiencing now, all of this is dependent upon various causes and conditions. Where we will go in our future life is dependent upon the kinds of causes and conditions that we are creating. And this is because there is a continuity, right? Even though things are impermanent, changing moment to moment, when we look at even external things like a flower, there is a continuity there, right? You plant a seed and then there's a sprout and then there comes to be a flower and that flower lives for some time and then it perishes. But the atoms that comprise that flower, the kinds of material substances that comprise that have a continuity to them. And so too, this body that we have right now has a long continuity, right? We came forth from the sperm and egg of our parents, which in turn came from other parents and other parents and other parents all the way back. And so this collection of atoms, this collection of things that comprise our body, there is a continuity to those. And so too when it comes to our consciousness. So when we think about the fact that all phenomena are dependent, arise due to causes and conditions, they also arise in dependence upon causes that are harmonious, right? It isn't as though a discordant kind of a cause can give rise to a very different result, but rather the result will accord with the cause. And so there were some in ancient India, although there might not be them around today, the hedonists or the Charvakas, who said that we arise from no causes in particular. Everything arises just causelessly. However, if that were the case, then things could arise at any time without any sort of particular cause. They would always be arising, or they could arise in situations where there is no cause. And we can establish through direct perception that that isn't possible, that all phenomena must arise due to a cause, and particularly a kind of harmonious cause. So this is also the case that then negates there being some kind of permanent, omnipotent creator whose acts determine what we experience, right? It is not the case that someone else's actions are the results that we experience, but rather it is our own actions that determine what we will experience. It is our own actions that lead to the results that we have to face. And so we are dependent upon ourselves, right? If we make the efforts to, with our three doors, our body, speech, and mind, refrain from harming others, abandon harming others, we are creating the causes for happiness in future lives and also the happiness in this life right now. The less anger that we have, the less pride, the less jealousy, less hatred and rancor and so forth, this will create more happiness for ourselves in the present, as well as planting the seeds for good in the future. And if we are able to look out and see others as being just like us, as being exactly the same and wanting to be happy and not wanting to suffer, we will recognize that those experiences that we inflict upon others, like say if we cause them harm, we ourselves are going to have to experience experience the results similar to that experience we have created for others. And so in that way, the kinds of taking accountability for our own causality, our own sort of agency, is what will create our happiness in the present as well as good results in the future as well.
Oh yeah. No, they do got soda. Then it kechi con Eurochin Geshe de ora. Judan came to Eurochin and Madame Debu Madame Yongura. So Namba Tawachinaco, Nobu Kanga kechi la. Jigdu Yesigara, Yurandu Yara, Namanashi Tegi Omara. Kuliako Marazum Bindajin, Sambachete, Chuki, Kadukat Kuduku Yara. Mubukanga condition a Korakora to stay. Could I change its hand day with Mato? Could I get the Matanako? Shield the map Sadura. Tinduko Kichimase. Kichi go Jidu Gechi in a could join the Degdoa. Nambal Pena Chunge. Tutama Pazo Sabasura, Tato Longra, Tilonde, Namba and Dujet Tamje Kichi to win any less, Debu Yonsinga Young Mares, Shawajinga, Debu Getu Mares, Koran Chen, the kitchen evil thoughts are in it, Debu Kariki Yores, the Dutch Yora. Inako Namba Senako, Kichi in Jurasia, yes, and Debu Getu Yora. Penanga Tatan sign, Lord the Abudu Pete. Lord ko keji jetu yara ina ngazu lega jetu do ko keji Lord to ure te jetu ure Lord zo ete ko keji zo do yara te se tan to ngazu ha ko ya do keji ngama de zo mena ko Lord do son de do ma ro pesa shi te mo chara lo ni te mo chara o tinde ko chi zo do yara ina ko gyun de tu de lega jetu do shawa jetu yara 지게 질린 도와를 세세티션이 계지르르 소스 내가 제디 제전 로셔요라 그 주안도 된 레부디 깨용 거라 어디인데 메타바이 버되게 직지데 레부 강가치 모두 tin데 줘요 말에 딜레자 메타바이 버되게 그 가래 있는 줄주다에 쉬어지 요거도와 소스 미 줘버도 시절람도 있는데 삼을단 줘 있는데 강가 조다에 쉬어라 Jordan Major Tagbari Bene, Condu Savine, Kadu in a Condu Savarante, Mikovic in a Kadu in a Kovic, Tegaran Tegura, Tegmara, Joaduda, San Joadua, you with the Sosa, Meda was Sosa, Joadua, Yora. Some visual and Joatan and Joadua, and visual and Joatan and Joadua. The indication made up in the cookabration to Wangazulia. Mida members of Tamukari in a tenacity in any. To get do around ya to a Melshara. On the end, so cusum gestualam dilatene. So be shall a pember to what I shall saw bumble tennis, Mambala, so savaging the yonga, pember to a mountain Ungora. Judan timber jebushi Ungora. Oh, the Induco, Kezilia, Tanda, Cosumlia, Susan Joatana, your esam. King Arazo Musum do to get it, Rakbechone. Oh, Yamanga Tindeshi, the Tambukage, Lusu Machine, machine case, or the Tatanda out singing in Madame Medat in the Chashasam, Juadre with the Congress of Dodo. Less ambuchan and Juadre with the leg and button and they would do you enter to Lende, Chachi, the Musum de Tugiora. That's how Mabuche go to that in the Yoramado. Oh, the Sosolia. Neda Luda Longulas over Sama, Juadon came Medabo in Basamlatani, and this also some Yambato to part or the Sambu Yong to decide or in the should beg we order. Yeah, teach some none.
So here, given that phenomena disintegrate moment to moment, they are impermanent. This means, again, that they arise due to various causes. So different causes lead to different results. And it is the case, again, that all things perish or disintegrate moment to moment. And really, when we think about like even our being alive, we remain alive so long as we have the kinds of causes and conditions that support support our being alive, right? So there is a kind of debate that emerges among non-Buddhists and Buddhists, because some non-Buddhists will look at this kind of assertion by Buddhists and say, well, if something changes moment to moment to moment, well, then how can there be results from various causes? Because that, the cause has disintegrated, has ended, and therefore, how could it bring forth any kind of a result? If things change moment to moment to moment, then this leads to there not being any sort of continuity, there not being the possibility of causes bringing forth their effects. However, Buddhists would say that it is precisely because of this moment to moment change that we can talk about causes bringing forth their results. And so they understand it in a different way. There is continuity, although there is that kind of moment to moment disintegration and perishing, in that things don't remain statically. This is actually what allows for the causes to bring forth results. These days, we can use the kind of example of electricity. This is something where when we turn it on, it seems like it's a one single thing, but there's actually a sort of moment to moment to moment, we are using that electricity, right? We wouldn't be sort of having to pay for it if it were just something that were one singular kind of a thing. But it is, although changing moment to moment, there is a continuity that remains. We can have a light burning and we're able to read and we're able to see and so forth. And so here it is the case that because whatever is impermanent changes, it has the possibility for those causes that are created to bring about results. And really, impermanence opens up the possibility of change. So here, if it were the case that things didn't have this kind of moment to moment nature, then we would just be stuck in how we are. Like if you're really angry, you would always be really angry. Or if you're in a situation where you're impoverished, you would always be impoverished. But it is the case that we have the possibility for change. We can improve ourselves. We can go towards the side of being better. We can also go towards the side of being more negative. But impermanence really means for us opportunity. If we create actions that are more beneficial, if we abandon harming others and do things that are beneficial to others with our body, speech, and mind, then we are creating the kind of causes that lead to results that are good and also allow for the possibility of continuing to benefit others more. We have the possibility of changing our habits, our actions of body, speech, and mind. And we can see this from our own experience. Like maybe before we were quite uninformed or uneducated, but we begin to study and we gain a kind of knowledge and know something, or we understand from our own experience that we can make ourselves less angry, we can reduce our various afflictions. And so thinking how all is impermanent is really a method for ourselves recognizing the possibility of change. And actually, if we make effort at working with our three doors, our body, speech, and mind, we can be confident that we do have the potential to change.
Oh yeah, that is it. They into Tamidaba, Samutara, Nelly Longilla Soba, Soso, Sumbuche Dele Soba Kanga, Midaba Samutane. Oh, then it and the co, David Rundelia, Maomba, Soso Kari Yomayoti, Judy Sosatanda Saya Indi, oh, Giliatini, Shella Tawapa, Modulada Miko, Toji Tandalia, Shella Tawapa, Mikiwa Chupa, Tiendo Sakiwa Chutuya, Yana, Mundichu Chutu, Selasoba. 대중을 깨울 두엘루야. 닝엘에 타르바토베체도 착당이디 조방고도 신샤체서 지단 내다 류도 롱주 조중간주 초에 된도 구구여라. 소에 땡점도 인삼사 마도지 때다 소소베 제미롱하로 지가되이나 봐. 네바도 때다베 냠도베 자자버지 베 삼사 삼루테다지모도 대외 추진시 단도 초에 땡점도 내다 류도 롱주를 소바테서 구구여라. 대삼 예삼 마도 텔레 셰 첨부 봐 신자체네 착바세거나 지단데 고고도 삼산데 고고로 와텔레 신자세고 말아 따좀 봐이나야 저거 또나 칼라사고라 아니 칼라이네 야니시네 고 소소 트베데 데레마 트베데 데레다 트베데 사고를 류탄다 때고를 삼기라 대삼리야 착바세요 말아 대대 소소베 먼저 남지 빼쳐도 레다 슈구진들 놈 티바나시 셔스지 자르나시 왜 가간 되면서 그게 자데 버리지 그뒤 이내고 我这里现在是个的，恰吧，可是呢现在米里呢的，龙珠呢的，苏苏里呢的，刚刚里啊，是吧？恰吧的买呢，你什么现在修全部的买呢？你控制的用嘛，是吧？当晚的用嘛，是吧？我这些那把去的，我这些的地方说是，苏苏那个那些故意的，你控制嘛不用过的，就是那个那些刚刚的用也有嘛的，我这个当晚的用不多。착당하지. 기왕에 내 미기와다 겨마 부사야요라. 텔레테네네 겨와 상녀다 모발에 때와다 동행이 되는 거라. 뒤에 내리 도베시도 요모 공두당아제 차도 된심 세바 소소 주메 밀레네바 제게게 삼류 리스 주바도 가져 있는 뉴뉴당야요라. 배 남산 빵이 따좀 버주에 맨날 그 뉴르 땅에 번가져 하고도 드레 서바지 공부이네 삼장하라 tin데 삼기와 메시딜리케라 소바 콤용에서나 삼루당 그여데 차고도 소바 마부셰요라 무브라 마부 칸나 차세요라 자체 카드카드 소바 콤바스나 때 메베소라 차야냐가도와 tin데 오다 소바 공기에삼 tin데 제나고 야르안도라 콘도시라 사야메게서도 tin데 차야용도 어디서다 가서르다 니레 차다라 소바 납신 소바 tin데 메네니 소소 Sendele kibra, ra kiba, ra roboto kiba, ra goyambura she samlute wache. Tonta mebe soso simle mikiba songe to shida mebe chara, chato and simle so what to shida mebe chana, soso litewa, ra. Teleten and le sambusa and maumbale tewa yoera. Soso milling and bache me mikibs ram mikibachana, the maumbala teleten, and she yongora, ring double yongora leset. Oh, indeed. Nile Tarba to Bechedo, Chada, Kondo, Najan, Dressim, Napsin, La Soba, Kanyuche, the Tarba to Becula do years and the given the teacher in some Kotone Audua. I let Jane Badakona, Narazanam Juti Kern Sigmara, Chata Sekona, to carry Japone Jakuri Sigara, Conto Sekona, Mama Conto Segura, see the Ise, attending membership of Yora, Kasura. 어디네 차단 빠네 차단 교환게 네 레사에 매버 차서나 다르와 도교라 풍부랑 매발랑고 같은 거 말아 진짜 지시고요 삼 대안에 라지고 많이 봐 라가 천디 밤에 준비 심지어 참아 교와 장매봐 삼르다나 교왕아만 남수 펜도 쉐버데 펜도 쉐버 로고로 단다 마트레마 마도 템버데 지연에 교왕아마들 펜동에 시부지 단던 것이나 가부 연구라들이야. 다다는 가지고 마신사 그 뒤여봐라. 단달고 펜터고 시지라. 근데 파다마다 녀당이 둘러서 봐. 간대지 줄나 줄네 펜더싱게 시지 인삼. 기지표베티 ngo신기 오마레 삼사리. 만달래고 심전에 떠디나. 대야고 말해서 대야고래서 예어를 시시 따다면 버치. 대완들을 동해면도 바래 삼사라나 신배. 소아티고네 따고 유송도 네 심지어 탐제야 란단 저명게 진짜 시에 체디 파마년들을 소반나시 심지어 현당자 대다된 저여 봐야지 대다도 대인데 심지어 탐제려야 팬도 줍통게 심지어 탐제려야 되는 것을 동해에 내겁게 동해다 탑도기 대화람 그 통게 근데 제 통계에 가사진 줄아셔서 그것이 연된 군데 랑도르게 내 탐지 신게 딘데게 가사실은 주어쇼섬 야 산제지 고반토가 쇼세 던다테라 딘데지 니바도 주어쇼서 마음발 여ring보 삼로다 갈래 망보 잡게 삼사리 타르 제게는 겨울랍치사거라 뒤에 던달이하니 되네 가서래 추에 던당가서 우머렌지 정월이야 Thabkhe, Madhutangele Tobe, Julia, Thabkhe, Tisus Samluta Wanashini, Yana Yadu Comne, Yamsulangi, some teacher to Chenyangi, some Kunu set of December shows, or did it.
So here, therefore, recognizing the kind of impermanence of our body, our possessions, our abode, and really thinking about, at first, for the sake of having a good rebirth in the future, that abandoning those kinds of causes, like the 10 non-virtues that cause harm for others, and engaging in their opposites, the 10 virtues, or we could talk about engaging in the 16 dharmas for higher rebirth, that through that kind of practice, one can ensure that you have something good in the future based upon reflecting upon impermanence and the kind of causality. But then recognizing that in order to gain liberation, to really get out of this cycle of taking birth under the control of karma and the afflictions, one needs to get rid of attachment and hatred. Now, we need things like our body, our abode, but if we recognize that they are things that are impermanent, that we shouldn't cling to so strongly, that we should recognize we are going to part with them, we are going to have to leave them behind, then we won't have such a strong clinging to them. We will be able to excuse me, say take our take care of our body without that sense of strong attachment or clinging. Like, for example, arhats, if they're hungry, they need to eat, right? But they don't do it out of a kind of attachment, a kind of clinging to things, but rather out of recognizing the utility of this body and taking care of it for the purpose of being able to work for liberation. So here, if we have attachment, it's kind of the way it's described in various texts, is like you've put oil onto paper or oil onto cloth, where it just like seeps in, and it's something that is so difficult to remove. And so if we are able to recognize the defects of particularly our attachment and our kind of clinging to things that comes forth from this strong clinging to I, the sense of I that then gives rise to a sense of attachment towards my body, mine, and the kind of hatred towards others. If we get rid of that, then we will no longer have that kind of attachment and hatred that propels us to take rebirth due to creating various karmas. So as long as we have those kinds of afflictions, so long will we be taking rebirth due to the force of those afflictions and the karmas that we create. And so here we need to really make an effort to reduce those afflictions as much as we can. This isn't something that is instantaneous, but rather it involves a sustained kind of a practice. Like, often we talk a lot about patience, right? We give all kinds of discussions and explanations of what patience is, but really we need to practice patience in those moments where things are difficult, where we are facing some kind of a challenge. And that's the way in which we actually improve it. It's not just through talking about it. And as much as we reduce our afflictions, as much as we get rid of our competitiveness and our jealousy, our anger, our pride, and kind of attitude of covetousness and malice and so forth, we will be happier and those around us will be happier. If we get rid of that kind of jealousy and competitiveness, then we will not experience the kinds of sufferings that creates, both in the short term and in the long term, in terms of the results that will be the ripening results of that. And so if we get rid of these afflictions, then we don't have to sort of face them again and again, in terms of by creating them, indulging in our afflictions as causes is going to lead to the result of unhappiness, but also having those afflictions again and again in terms of the kinds of habits that we are creating. And so this begins by seeing these as faults, right? Sometimes we don't recognize our afflictions as being faulty. Like, we think that our anger is somehow protecting us when someone gets angry or does something to harm us, or we think that our attachment is kind of a good thing. But we need to be able to recognize the faults of those afflictions in order to then be able to get rid of them. And so making that kind of effort to eliminate, to reduce and eventually eliminate our afflictions, then we will be able to attain that state of liberation. But just to gain that state of liberation for ourselves alone is really not sufficient. It's not just me that's in this kind of situation of samsara, but really all of these other sentient beings who have benefited me in past lives, who have acted toward me with great kindness as my mothers and fathers and so forth. Other than not recognizing them due to our having changed lives and sort of switched around, we have been connected with all other sentient beings. And so therefore we shouldn't distinguish between like, oh, this is my enemy, this is my friend, but rather recognize that all sentient beings have shown us great kindness, and all sentient beings are the same in wanting happiness and not wanting to suffer. So we shouldn't view them as like unconnected from us, but rather wishing to be able to benefit all sentient beings in a kind of temporary sense of bringing about their temporary happiness, as well as in their being able to be brought to the highest ultimate happiness of Buddhahood. We should think, I want to become a being who has eliminated all faults, who has developed all good qualities, who has a complete knowledge of what is to be adopted and what is to be abandoned in order to be able to lead all of these sentient beings out of their suffering. And this is something that means we need to take a kind of long-term view. It's not going to happen right now, immediately, but by planting the seeds for that, we will eventually be able to become a Buddha and benefit all sentient beings in that way. And so for that purpose, we should think that, well, I'm listening to this Dharma of the precious Garland by Nagarjuna that teaches the various causes for higher rebirths in the state of definite goodness. And by listening to this, I'm then going to contemplate it, put it into practice, meditate on it in order that I might become a Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. So we should set such a motivation for listening to the teachings.
Oh, yeah. That Kimbala sobe. Yende soso yung mo se chito so. That did it. Niba timba. Oh, God, na. Kimbala sobe yende tuti temba tindo sa shira. Ta soso ngongo so wa se te to. Kimbala sobe. Kimbala sobe. Soso ngongo so wa se. Oh, did it. Did it. That I solo ka. Sumju so tu tin shira. Sum so tu. Kimba. Kimba. Toya yabura. Mi yoku. Kimba rande yon tong wa se to. Kimba de zao timba. Kimba rande yon tong wa. Rando rinjira. Rande ma rando. Kimba rando yon tong wa se. Soso ki nor. Soso la wa yu nor chala la soba tinde karina. Pensho tinde shantalia tonga tere esi ora. Kimba tonga. Kimba rando yon tong wa. Chitim shenpen chao. Chitim sede shen la tsawa pa. Shen la neba pa ko shen tewa yon e tanda tsawa pa e terwa. Shenpen ki chao. Soba chowa pang ba te sa. Soba sede ko soso nawan mandonge. Soso kasa da tusa da tinte chik lega chita chi mandini. Ni ko kondu sa yora. O tele atene. Soba chowa pang ba. Kondu pang ba te. Soba kome tere ta tera. Soba chowa pang ba se. Soso semla draw, nawan draw da ma draw tosto yungra. Sangwa soso dava na shintu kumara. O tinte chunga yine. Nuji la chimanya be soba sera. Quran tinte samgiri kame samsa. Shashana tawarwa. Tunge tangle je soba soso tos dava ra chunga na. Digri kayo mara sam. Kurtuwa, sotuwa sera. Ni cholange pasi be soba sera. O tinte mamu yora. Tete se. Chitim shenpe cha oche. Soba towa pangpa de. Chindui kela towa ose. Chindui sede ko kewa la towa ase. Oh, tatiri. Pati ma logo ina mena. Trabachi lo na dira. Oh, ta chimba ni rangi nor shen la yon so tongwe. Senpa tangse. Soso wangwe chala de shen la pendok chido o tinge kola. Chingi yinsa, pyugi yinsa bena. Ni tongwe senpa terwa. Tangpo senpa te kuyora. Tong sem se terwa. Ni tongwe senpa le tena o te kera yinsa kane lamnenda. Ya si lakwe ya kuchi pa. Tewe ni lunga ki chawa tuzu chimba chingi wara. O tuzu le sikre sera. chimba yonso tongwe semba da te kune lambe lunga ki leso so otela chimbe le se wara chimba sutimne shela pembar jawe chedo rani bashi tondo niwa pangba os o shelia sawa pangba chitiro sosu tangya tondo samguta ne shela sawa da karina chepe batinde mayimba che ro o shela pembar jawe chedo ne soba de karesa soba ne toa pangba des kondo mashe che soto bache ro chola nebar semba sosos soba de sum nejile chimi neba soba dunga tangane ye soba chola nebar semba sobas choji samlutane ko tayuta tinde samlutane soba ko yora chindi ne kewala toa ni do se chindi se de kewala toa de se kewe chawala jodi so kabito ne jwe de odi ke chimbude do zongan kela toa singara zo kewa tuba ina kabito ne keba sambu yin samba sambu chigi ora yabura te chambata sawata nyinshida tinde samtangi ora tinde tandal chenyangi samna kabu chinyane kakuwa sirede ora yako chindi se zongan kela toa wase tambu nyende kabito ne nye kewa sambu yin chimanchina o yabu chuswa tere yabu nyen to so tachine ki samla tangu de soba kongo de chena sheba na shikantu tu chegu de tinde chena ni ke olap chimbu sagira kasira zonga kela to so tire ke wa chede tambu toe thone shade zan toe thone shabu sungdo ti mene kale de kasi ka ota tere kale khaso samna chimane ko ke wa to le to mengi sagira samdengi tu tinde sheyugdo taya 대구에서 초주지서 공자 대구에서 심바 조아매서 대회는 아니 정말 수수대서 공자서 그 통해서나 미기부 차그리서도 taya 대구 점마서 초진이 지치기도 도저 초진이 심바 가오매서 taya 걸려서 도된 적이 오마라 오 거래서다 조아방바테서 Shela nebar semba sosos. Sundu ne kaya chawala toa. Ni toa so techi lamna. Tindi so. Chawa tandri bache. Tindi lamne dire. Yeah.
So then, picking up in the text, we're at this second point, which is identifying individually the entities of good qualities of each of the six perfections and compassion. And so beginning with verse 436, it reads, "To be generous is to give up one's wealth. To have ethical conduct is to endeavor to help others. Fortitude is the abandonment of anger. Joyous effort is enthusiasm for virtue." So here, when it comes to generosity, this is to give up those things that you own. There are various types of generosity, but this includes being able to part with things that you possess, give them away to others, your wealth, your possessions, and so forth. And then the second line reads, "To have ethical conduct is to endeavor to help others." So really, ethical conduct involves giving up harming other sentient beings, really doing whatever is beneficial for others. And then fortitude is the abandonment of anger. So here, things are going to appear to us in different ways. Sometimes it appears according to our wishes. Sometimes things don't go in accordance with what we might want or what we see as being pleasant or right. But in those kinds of situations, we need to have the fortitude to be able to bear with whatever comes our way. When we experience suffering, we should have a kind of this kind of fortitude that is thinking nothing of that suffering, being able to endure that without really being overcome by it. So here, then joyous effort is enthusiasm for virtue. And so looking to the commentary to this, just giving a little bit of a review, whatever it is that you possess, you own, whatever kind of wealth you have, really generosity is first the thought of being able to part with those things, to be able to give them up to others. And then it is followed through by when you actually verbally say to someone, oh, you can have this, or give that thing with your body. So it is that thought then followed by actions of speech and body. And so here then the practice of ethical conduct is really to give up just striving for your own aims, to really engage in activities that are beneficial to others, and to get rid of anything that is harmful to other sentient beings. As it says, ethical conduct is to endeavor to help others, and that also involves giving up any sort of harm towards them. And then there is fortitude. We have these three different kinds of fortitude: not thinking anything in the face of suffering, not reacting or retaliating to when others are angry, and also in the face of studying the Dharma, when we are thinking about the Dharma or complex topics, to have that kind of fortitude in pursuing our knowledge there. And then we have joyous effort, which is really to do with joy, to do virtuous actions with joy. And so we should think, like, what a fortunate opportunity it is. If we listen to the Dharma, we should really have a thought of like how fortunate it is that I'm able to listen to the Dharma, that I'm able to think about this Dharma. And when we accomplish some sort of action, we should rejoice in it as well. And in that way, we really accomplish great waves, a great kind of virtue. But if we have this thought of like, oh, this is so difficult, this is so hard, I have to sit here and do this, like we sometimes have that in the context of a retreat. Someone will try to do a retreat, but they are not really joyous in doing it. They don't have a kind of interest or a joy. And so maybe they say, okay, I'm going to sit down and meditate for an hour. But they're really unhappy throughout that, such that when they get up and they even look at where they're going to sit and meditate again, they just have this feeling of revulsion. Like, I don't want to go back and do this. And so you might end up engaging in the meditation. You force yourselves to sit down and do it, but you're not really doing it with joyous effort. We should engage in virtues with a kind of desire to undertake them, a feeling of joy in being able to have that opportunity. Oh yeah, again.
Oh yeah, 뭐래? 어제도 나 뒤지시는 뭐래? 저 짐바 주대 쇠바 선부터 빼 전부래도 안 알아줄 어야. 진소 추숨 대다서도 배모시 대월시 맥힘바 남을 지단고 짐발라서 버텨서 쏘 김바 벤저 그 누구 생각에 시도 내가 생각해서 뜻을 쏘시는 송구도 이나 그 랍도 좋아 이나 들 쫀쫀 고여라 쫀고 매백하지 마라 지소 추숨 대다 배모시 대월시 맥힘바 남을 수남 세제 소자 대단히 있어도 산제 수기 단위 꾸이주스 수남지 소대다 망차되는 뒤로도 이 시기 소다 수남지 소니 요라 이 시기 소대다 시럽다 그 동반이라 소보 메타볼라 소보고 시럽게 차디라 단다데 상부 차디레데도 짐바 추르셔바 소보데 자 딜량아주 거서래 우마든지 태어나려 최지 람보치스다 람가 첨부스 람보체를 먹고 버셔는 진짜 다려 마무도도 그래서래 이그 지금 신바들의 망보여 방하죠 상승기 진바스 남녀가 좀 많지 상승기 진바들 진바장냐 거대라 변조다 된대 강의로 버셔야 돼 뒤장자려면도 상승기 진바스 최지 진바스 랍셔야 돼 진바장도 거라 밀이야 지 삼단다 랍게와라 삼단다 티마르 티델라고 티르마시 티치시데 일단 제 진바장도 거라 랍셔 챙겨와라 삼단다 티 랍게와라 걸자 게 랍게네 진바장도 거라 게티 랍게와라 거 챙겨와라 가이스 상세지 진바스 최지 진바스 민식배 진바스 강의 요거를 지는 쉬우지 강의 요는 그저 로고 전에 강의 세워대 대지배 장주도 저 집에 자신부래도 처지 상세 집에 처지 집에 미집에 집에 매일 로고에 서무 집에 장주도 왕샤 강의 요부터 소리야 어디에 신바디 뜻이라 수dim 때에 망보용도 단단 아주 지단 수dim시 미기 좁은 수dim 기부 총원 대신에 미기 좁은 수디라 알레 어디 실럽네 땅마야
Mm. So here, these three, as we saw from other verses here in the precious Garland, these three of generosity, ethical conduct, and fortitude are mainly taught to householders. This is really proclaimed in particular to householders. And by doing these practices, one accumulates a great collection of virtue, of merit, which in turn leads to the form body of a Buddha. So we have these two accumulations, the accumulation of merit that is primarily accomplished through these three, generosity, ethical conduct, and fortitude. And then we have the collection of wisdom that comes about through really thinking about emptiness and the kind of using our intelligence and discrimination, that wisdom, in order to be able to primarily lead to the result of the Dharmakaya. But here, this great path involves both of these, right? So here, even if one is ordained, it is important to engage in these three, although it is particularly recommended for householders because, for example, they possess wealth, they possess things that, and kind of accumulate possessions in a way that those who are ordained do not. But generosity is not just material generosity. We can talk about many different kinds of generosity. There is the material generosity of giving possessions and wealth to others who are in need, but there's also the generosity of the Dharma, giving advice to others to help them, to benefit them, giving them advice that helps them to change their behavior and to bring about their happiness, teaching them in some way or giving them advice is also a form of generosity. And we can have the kind of generosity of giving freedom from fear. Those who are in difficult circumstances, giving them some sort of relief, providing them with protection, helping them out of whatever situation they are in that is difficult, that too is a form of generosity. So when we think about generosity really helping any other being who is in need, we can say is a type of generosity. So this is a very vast practice. We shouldn't just think of it as being giving material things. And then we'll move to ethical conduct.
야 전에 추점셔야 될 지당 아주 개인 대신에 개인 거라서 숨제 친구라 개인 방망이로 소용구라 때문에 기주인의 랍주인의 랍주 기주의 숨제 추점 연구래 개로인의 개로 숨제 추점 연구래 디나시고 현달의 용식구라 남유가 좀 미기와 주방 개와 주투에도 낭바상막에 지단의 방구에 추점이 시작도 미기 주고 추점셔야 되지 어디인데 가서 단단 네 값을 추점될래 대점지 조금에도 계속 전주 선바트 속에 전주 선배 동발란도서 안에 들어간 추점 현대하고도 니시 동배 추점시 소소서 가르가르 그 가르가르 방기네 뒤방기 스케일 한번 다시 동미한테 니시 동배 추리라 근데 개와 추도지 심제 되지 추점시 심제리아 돈다 소소 펜바 두고야 고급 가르쳐나 대지기 예시 전주 선배는 죽tumlan도서 전주 선배 동발란도 뒤kel거도 뒤동바되고도 심제 되지 추점시 심제리아 펜도가 돈다 가르치고나 뒤상마랑 시기시 고급 가르쳐 충분히 되지더라 니시 동배 추점 되지다 가가셔라 심제 되지 추점시 맞아요 상세기 짐바 말말 전화가 진다 추dim셔야 되라 니시 동배 추dim셔 개와 추도지 추dim 개와 이제 정말 주에 그 팀래도 개와 자와 컨디션한 거 지기 있고 갑도 제토에 강의 받을 지기 있어 kel랑도 저 개와 추도지 추dim시 심지어 던지기 추dim시 추dim 빼자 전부 저기도 어디지라며
So then we have ethical conduct, and there are ethical precepts that are taken up when one, say, takes householder vows of when one takes as a male or a female householder. There are certain vows that you are committing to, precepts that you are going to uphold when you take those, and so too for taking the kind of vows of ordination, whether it is a novice or fully ordained monk or nun. There are certain codes of conduct, one could say ethical conduct, that you are committing to by taking those vows. Now, as a common kind of ethical conduct, we can say that all Buddhists abandon the 10 non-virtues and engage in the 10 virtues. That is the sort of most basic level of ethical conduct. But here one is going beyond that, because we are talking about children of the victors, these bodhisattvas, who are really not just refraining from harm, which they have these 3 types of ethical conduct: of restraint from harm, working for the benefit of others, and accumulating virtuous deeds or gathering virtues. So not only do they refrain from harming others in terms of abandoning the 10 non-virtues, but also try to help accomplish the aims of others. This comes with taking the bodhisattva vow, that you are committed to trying to benefit others in whatever way you can. And so too, there is this kind of ethical conduct of accumulating, gathering all virtues, whatever accords with the situation, whatever positive action you are able to do, you are committed to doing that kind of action. And so here we should think of ethical conduct as well as being a very vast, a very kind of extensive practice.
Oh yeah. Dadi chanju semba so da ina ngaran so ina 그 심지에 돈다치 펜도시에라 수수 제투주디 가리네 제고라 고급 총소나 펜도시에 고급 총섬 제고요라 요 심지에 던지스데세 맞으래 이제 담배스데 개화치도 있으면 따라 개화 건데시나 어디 내가 개화해서 신뱅 차어디 야구도 섬사니 티 강가 수수 제투에도 제고요라 그 chanju semba 그 아주 제목을 그 시가 말아 냠수 렘바스 티네신 잡은다고 말아서 가투지디 제고요라 저네 진짜 지금체 아니 쇠바들래 쇠바 숨도가 쇠바 숨 내실에 치면냐베 쇠바스 내가 챙겨대고 내가 깨나 다이슈 다케요 말고 고라치 주사 카메 삼사르치 가르상다나 콘도마션이 오라 치면냐베 쇠바스 게 마사비시 유샤나미 당신 따라 Tisamle tangda wako tindashe so tindashe ti mandira ti samdana ni ape dura kodo. Nechele chiminya besaba. Tungi tangling je seba susu chongda ba tos rayo ne digre kolpeta ne digre samne kiwacha so. Ante dimo ngale chi dimo sanya tipa sagtera. Nechele chiminya tungi tangling seba. Chulange ba sebe seba se. Ti seba te kachimbude do. Ti sumbude pe kachimbude do. De casa. Que se canga de chinda chinda. Chimba chide sumba tira chiso chisum teta pemo chi teorishe be kimba nama. Sunam shije soja teta ni sunam je soja teta tinan de do. Sunam shije soja teta. Sanje sugi tangi kui kyus. Ta kuno yago be sembene sanje ke suguto be kyude chawdo. Sanje ke shinkan pisum sawa. Ya ne pisum sawa sene shingan pisum sawa. Lu pisum sawa chensa da peche te mandruye chera. Ya tesu kanga de sugu kusu ge yende sama. Shendal ba chue tene chensa busum ju sen peche sambu chechu tebal sawa tesu kulu dukutwa. Sako sanje sugi tangi ko ikyo sugu. Sanje de ne takbe shingam ne pisum sawa ra. Ani lu pisum sawa chensa da peche sambu la sawa treba kusutira. Lonje pisum sawa su shingam la sawa pisum sawa ra. Tingara zule tagare te toa. Sosu lu pisum sawa kyawa sambu chi ne kune te lengu toa. Lonje pisum sawa kowe ne te hiyongu toa. Ne pisum sawa, lu pisum, lonje pisum sawa. Nganzo e mili, ngondo lada mi koba pisum sawa. Ne da lu da lonje kanga pisum sawa ya wuchi ke kune te sumbu te peke chabu de toa. Chanchu semda tende samba sambu sembe ne sanje yeni sugu. 신감 줍시다. 꿀리기 채사부 순지 삐지 삼부 깨주 잡은 줍시다. 숨상배 양라 소바트는 줍시다. 구순 구다 숨기 연대 상마대 네 벤지올 신감라 소바테 강가 때 좁부터 자티고 나라줄에 계신부대도 어디지라나.
So then here we have next is fortitude. And here we're often talking in the context of, oh, this is a practice of bodhisattvas. But we too should take advantage of all kind of situations in which we are able to, say, work for the benefit of others. Like here in the context of ethical conduct and these three types of ethical conduct, we shouldn't see that this is, oh, that's just for bodhisattvas, but rather we should think that this is something that applies to us as well, that we should take advantage of every situation where we can work for the benefit of others. And we should try to practice accumulating every kind of virtue that we can, doing whatever positive action we have the ability to do. And so then we move to fortitude. And here, fortitude or patience is of three types. There is the kind of fortitude of not thinking anything in the face of harm. Like when someone does us harm, we just set it aside or are indifferent to it, rather than getting into that kind of thinking of like, well, why did they do this to me? And what were they thinking? And what's wrong with that other person? To be able to let that go, to not think anything in the face of harm is a very important kind of fortitude for us. And so too, the kind of fortitude to bear with situations of suffering, wherein maybe we have to take a little bit of a hit, we have to take a little bit of a loss, but instead of thinking like, well, why me? Why is this happening to me? To be able to bear with that, to be able to have fortitude in the face of those experiences of suffering is the kind of second type of patience or fortitude. And then there is that which relates to studying the Dharma. When we engage in the study and practice of Dharma, to be able to have fortitude and really push through with that is an important component as well. And so here, when it comes to, in this verse, again, where it talks about these three, generosity, ethical conduct, and fortitude, as being particularly praised for householders, and they add up to the accumulation of the causes that leads to the form body of a Buddha, including the kind of excellent abode, the pure realm within which a Buddha abides, as well as the kind of pure possessions and so forth, that pure body, abode, and possessions, this body complete with all of the various major 32 major marks and 80 minor signs and so forth, the kind of pure land, that excellent abode, and the sort of pure possessions that one enjoys. And this is something that, again, is in relation to Buddhahood, when one becomes a fully enlightened Buddha and attains the form body of a Buddha. But this is also applicable even if we are just looking for something kind of excellent within samsara. If we are looking for an excellent body, if we are looking for having good possessions and a good abode, an excellent abode, then this is something that we should engage in the practice of. So when it comes to bodhisattvas, this is something that they do. They engage in generosity, ethical conduct, and fortitude with those causes going toward the form body of a Buddha. But so too, we should practice likewise, in turn reaping the results even within this sort of samsara.
Oh yeah. That really didn't so bad Geshe so da. Doing a joke sir. Chibatan had the shell pendo shit the Chibatan Gora. And it's about the Chitim de Shell top by Chito. Chitim Songuara. Shall never bambata, shall pember to anything good. Tini you only asked the Saba Congresera. Saba de Magum the Tini Yungu Marese. Shall pendo Sigmarwa. Chimbaton Alasa was shall pember to Maro Condusasatilla. Any Sab Ansatilla shall Condusagine, Sab Angumarwa. So I say Tapsichira. Tini Lamdo Longo Nessa, Tini one edge in Yamsulanko Yuna. Shooting Lamdo draws Yesera. One edge Yabukongo in the Saba Ketchishira. Saba Magumna Tini Yomaris. Saba Comna, it is some yon to Yora. So the Pemesis, the Saba de Pecation without Namjunganzo. Kondu Mambu Yohashira, Koto Sindimandida, Kondu Sacho Yora. Demanded to Chuna Namsa Kondu Sacho Chitega. And then me, she Namju Shavin at the no matter Stunguda. Oh, good tea, Abuchimudu, some such. Kondu Sati in the Sabape. Keshambureto, what is somebody pay Keshambudu Samsa? Namjung had the Soina like Mangsha Yoshiti Yongora. Or teach you soon, and do it.
So here, fortitude is particularly important here. Although we might try to engage in generosity, like giving to others, and ethical conduct of trying to refrain from harming and benefiting others, really without fortitude, the practice of these will not come about. If we really want for those practices to become a path to really lead toward the collection of merit, then we need to have this kind of practice of fortitude. Without that, we will not be able to successfully engage in generosity or really ethical conduct. I mean, we're really beings who are on the verge of getting angry all of the time, right? We see something that we don't think is right, or something that upsets us, or something that we think is harmful to us, and we're really ready to get angry right away. And that kind of destroys any sort of positive accumulations that we would make. And so we should just emphasize that fortitude is a particularly, especially important kind of practice to really make the other practices of generosity and ethical conduct be successful, bring forth results.
Oh, yeah. That's indeed, Sindri Gela Draw, yes, Junga Gela Draws. Take Chawa Karachavana, take Kabuton de Chebudua. Take Kabuton de Cheven and Mobile coach and Dungura. Make Chawa de Abudas and Kabut, some draw at the Senekogavia, which was some che. Tichenek Mobile and the Dura. Kawacheva, Kawachigina, Susu Kawache, the Lamadron, that is search. Shirakawa Memsis, Kawache, or Tindisi Mera. Obe Abucho Sosa, Kugapcho Sosa, Colapento Sosa, Kokang literature to some Karaka Karine, or Camdu Abuchi to some Chimba to the service some day, Camdu chair, the chart chair, the Loso chair, the Kanga Chawa Karisene, Yabucho Sosa, Kawakom Gugdwa, the Kabuton Chego, the Cassin Burisha, or this one, in this.
And then we have joyous effort, which is enthusiasm for virtue. So whatever virtuous action that we undertake, we should do so joyfully, right? Really looking at it as being a fortunate opportunity. We should think how auspicious, what a great opportunity I had in doing this virtuous action. If instead we sort of are thinking like, okay, yeah, whatever, I did something virtuous, or we don't really have a sense of joy in that, then it's not going to be particularly beneficial. We should undertake positive actions with a sense of enthusiasm, with a sense of joy in that. If we do, say, have a really good sense of refuge, we should rejoice in that. If we do prostrations, we should rejoice in that. If we engage in generosity or study or any of these other actions, we should undertake them with a kind of joy and really rejoice in them after as well.
Oh, yeah. That is it, Akasha. Someday, someday, Rochi, Nemo Mesudo, Shirap Tender, Della Bepsa, Anekore, Ninji Semje, Tamjela, Ninji Rochi, Lotus Sosa. That is my Japanese dollars and the matter. Someday, the thing is going to go. Kevala says it was Chinguita, Trevor Ronyo, Nemo maybe she was serious. Someday, such Nemo may said. You got in a comje, you tell us, Chichito, or Chinguila, so but it's a just and a part in the Jungicha. Shirap tender, Talambe, Shirap de Temba, Talambe, you need to one at them, but when it's to the Katrina, Titalabep to your Shirap together. Shirap tender, Talambe. Then Ninji the door, Ninji Simjan Tamjala, Ninji Roche Lotus. Ninji the Carredosena. Shirabi, something Kawala Techi to Chinguta, Tele Ronyo, Nemo maybe she was Siguresa. Should have need Tambani that Dabashila so but tell them about the Siguresa. That it's a bit, should have shit and needs to one the carry, but tell them be the should have to Chetura. We need to carry him at the taxi session. Yinji Chimbe Simja Tamjala, Mine, Tumeda, Tended Yinji. Yinji, Shandela Rochi Volotoswat, and Yinji to Simja Tamjala Minia, Shanji, Shantumeda Tended, touch it to Shantumeda Tended. So what the secretary said, yeah, I'm doing it. Chimbe Longe, Timbites, and the man of Los Angeles. Yeah, all what is Los Angeles?
So then turning to meditative stability, coming in verse 437. So this verse reads, meditative stability is unafflictive one-pointedness. Wisdom is definitely determining the truth's meaning. Compassion is a state of mind that savors only loving kindness for all sentient beings. So here, meditative stability or meditative concentration is this kind of mind that is single-pointedly focused on virtue without the afflictions, without the sort of flavor of the afflictions of dullness or excitement that disturb that kind of meditative stabilization. And then wisdom is this definitely determining the truth's meaning, really coming to an actual understanding of the way that things are, examining the nature of knowable objects and coming to a determination as to how they actually exist, how they are the reality of those various truths. And then here, compassion, great compassion in particular, observes all sentient beings and has this kind of singular flavor of wanting to benefit all other sentient beings, wishing that they might be freed from their suffering. So that's the kind of attitude of compassion, this again, a state of mind that savors only loving kindness or wanting to benefit all of these sentient beings and wishing that they be free from suffering.
Oh, yeah, that's so soon Debu said, the dollar son been Debu to shout off, somebody said. So soon Debu said to the shot. I got it, Chimbe Longe said, that Chimbaton on the tene, and then go Chimati, Debu Kari and Grisina, round of Longe, Chimbu Grisera. Tanda Ranga Longe, the Shallet and the Shalpendo Chimbuchunde, the Debu de la Mama, but the social Longe Chimbu Grisera. Chimbe Longe said. Timji Tese. Shanla Tsawapani, Shan Tewe Shetu, Shanla Tsawapan Basonza, Mahambani, so Kewa de Tewe, Kendra Kewa Lingris. Kewa Member to me, Mambu Young member Shetewa, Mambu Young Yube, Kukab Yube, and it Kendra Kewa Lingris. Kimji Tese, Chitim Song, Lieutenant Kendra Kewa, Kiriba. Seven down there, Seva Comba Lieutenant Rebukari Wilson, mean down the Demba. Down the Demba, Pata to Indo Kabo, Yitu, no Drobo, yeah, what in the Sube down there, the best is Tundritan, the Kawalia, Toa Shukchambo, get the Miss Siji Chambu, Siji Chambo. Someday she says, someday Combalatene, and then the Gosoda, Chiwada, Goba, Samba Casacala, some Casacali Camdo. Some of the time, room at the middle of Cascal rotate, go over the Ora. And the Akasha same moves at the show this. To the Mary show this. Someday she is a Chiwada Govala, so but to see September, it's a Tumbuja at Tungisha. Someday she loyal to us. She left the Chambacha and she needs only the Kariba. Only time so just somebody something. My wrong, even she won't your mother some time. Shesuna Rama Meba Shesuna Penyamu Sayada Shensha Shukchur Shida Dura, or Tinashita Titsabe, Mitawa Yima in Samluta, Karina Shichenes, one at the Shensuna Sigara, and Lloyd Mishiba Mungala Trina Tunga, Tunga Yoeta Samlutanda Madrid Tunga Yungora, Samlutanda Madrid, Lunga Shiva Note, and Tunga Yungora, what is Samlutanda Tata, Join young Marisa. Sometimes Geshe lawyer tells her, Yinji anything good to say. Yinji Kombalatana and it's also the Randa Shin Sangme, then the Tarsim to this or a teletene change you some get over there. Teletene Sanje Yokoma Tom de Loke. Sanje Yokoma Tom the same Randa Shin Tarsim Batutura. Oh, Girisha. Don't ever the long name to Malonia. Chimben Debu Longe dancer. Sitim Guinea. Tendre Dewa dancer. Seben Danda Demboche, Jundu Jiki, Siji Chimboche, something Chingula, so when you maybe Shiwata. Lawyers, Shirab Disira, Lo said the Shirab Siwa, Shirab de Sibale Tora, Shiba was, Ninja and Ranshangi Gundu was, or Tibata Chikuna.
Mm. So then next we turn to an explanation of the individual results of each of these practices. So first it says, from generosity comes wealth. So by giving to others, by bringing about that kind of beneficial experience to others, we in turn create the causes for us to experience that sort of benefit ourselves. It comes back to you. You will have the conditions in the future to have enough to be able to continue to engage in generosity and so forth. And so from generosity comes wealth. And then from happiness from ethical conduct. In particular, when we don't harm others, when we engage in ethical conduct, we secure for ourselves a happier kind of migration. By benefiting others and not causing them harm, we in turn create the causes for us to experience benefit and less harm from others. And so then from fortitude comes beauty. By having that kind of practice of fortitude, one gains a birth in which you are attractive, pleasant to others, and splendor from joyous effort. From engaging with joyous effort, we experience the ripening result of a kind of splendor. And through meditation, through the practice of meditative concentration or stabilization, one is peaceful. You attain a state that is free, pacified from. I mean, normally our minds kind of go all over the place. We have this sort of excitement that causes our minds to get distracted to all kinds of objects that we feel attached to. Or we might have a kind of dullness where the mind is really sort of dark and diluted. And here, meditative concentration eliminates those kinds of faults such that we have the ability to stay single-pointedly focused. We have that kind of peacefulness that is free of those various afflictions. And then through wisdom comes liberation. So by coming to understand reality as it is, by coming to get rid of, I mean, normally we perceive that there's this I that appears to us as though it's like autonomous, independent, existent from its own side. And really all of our suffering comes from that, comes from that kind of improper thinking. And so if we are able to eliminate that, we get rid of that kind of misperception by coming to understand things as they are, then that wisdom causes liberation from samsara. And then through compassion is what accomplishes all aims. So it is from this attitude of compassion that we are able to bring our own and others' aims to their completion. We can ourselves eliminate all of our faults and thereby lead others to that state in which they experience that highest kind of happiness. So all happiness for ourselves and others really, or our aims and others' aims, is accomplished through the practice of compassion.
Oh, yeah. That's Shiba Tumujin Debusidua. Parrot Chimba Truche, Ninji, Denchon, Timbuti Tumu Debusit, so Debutal Shesara, Tumu Debukarium Grestisha. 어디 가르쳐 전부 대다 말로 바르세 파르지 조세 아니 닝지 첨부 아 전부 대다 말로 바라 진짜 바로 침바 예세 그 상마게 데부들 대들 lok이나 아니 시럽지 바로도 치네 산계지 고반도에 줄도 그래서 와라 아니 가래 이시 삼계 메캬비 유세 삼계 메캬비 유 산계지 고마 산계지 시라 소바테즈도 그래 직된 공부 니톱 교수 직된 심제 탐색의 건데 겹치 통계에 산계지 고반도에 줄도 그래서 다 제바디 말로셔네 되면 연대 tembute다 말로가 직접 로로로로문지 내가서 단다 상마제베서 로베 tembute라 로베 내가서 거라 로베 람디 내가서 데브가리움 그래서나 근데 conversation 로랑지 내가로 테줄이야 퍼진 주당 자완ing지 전부라 conversation 나서 바로도 침배 23년 매체배 유인지대 지된 공부 양다고 저배 산전이 토반 요로서 로바 람지 내갑서 진짜 로바를 때네 마음반의 안에 산제지 고마 토그래서 어디지구나
So then we get to their kind of common or general effect of these 7 practices. So we have the 6 perfections plus the practice of compassion. And so above we had their sort of individual results that come from each of those. But here this is talking about the more general results. So in verse 439, it says, through the simultaneous perfection of all 7, one attains the sphere of inconceivable wisdom, lordship over the world. So here, by engaging in the practice of these 7 without exception, the simultaneous perfection of all 7, which is what one is training in on the path of training, right? When one is still in training, but through the perfection of those, through the completion of those, one then attains this sphere of inconceivable wisdom, and thereby obtains the state of a perfect, complete Buddhahood, a master over this world.
더 사주윤 대세도 이발라 니스 사주윤 대세들에서 이발라 사주윤 대세벌니 지던다 양라가 되어서와 더 담보 사주 지던다 대세도 지도던다 숨바 엄마 주변 데벌에서 엄마 주변 데벌어라 뭐지나 주변 들으시게 자주 선반 남제 사과매 사과매베 신이질라서 왜 심바 니 차르 넘버 체나 사시자에 민토데 윤대지 내스기베 치르서 사사테에서 가르치그래서나 와 사주스거라 그 자주 선반 남제 사과매베 이시 니질라서 왜 심바세 사과매베 이시스도 동반이 무슨도 또 베시들 사과매베 이시스도 동반이 무슨도 또 되려 사과매베 이시스 니모기 껴요 말아 현당 로인의 고 템바투바 나야데 tindo시 니모기 껴요 거라 어딜에 고 동반이 짱짱마도 현다가 있는 게 말아 계속다 사과매바스 니모베 껴매베 이시 상매기 이시스라 상매 사과스는 니모기 껴다 잡아도라 सक्सेस 니모기 껴매게 되줄이야 상매시거라 근데 말아서 시번이니까 사체를 두라 템바투바 나기와라 딘진디 템바투바 좀 딘진디 우마 tenjualutal nyamushagra. Tempatuba zinbetinzite nyamushagra. Nyamu betuase. Shitip de paxadel shagdoa. Tempatuba zinbe lote shabe paxashora. Nyama yebe shuljiora. Otile paxasgre. O tinto kasura. Saba mebe shese tomba nyango sumdu tobe shiteresko. Tiles nyamo kityan yo mare. Tempatuba zenge mare. Tempatuba nawade yo mare. Shem mancha shebalia. Tempatuba nawayongora. Garansu chuchi shebaina. Takasido sinaniba chi tanda yana tanda tambune. Zubarantele chachu semba namje saba mebe. Tomba nyango sumdu toba. Nyamu be kyanji makwe be shi. Te saba mebe. 이시 닝지라서 왜 닝지 첨부 심바에 신den게 년도다 랑게도 이네 그 사반미베 이시 요르데 닝지 첨부 생겨요 말아 단도데 대바 첨부데 사반미베 상미지 시에 닝지 첨부 생겨요라 대선자 산제지 고만 토베 줄라서 와트전도요라 닝지 첨부라서 왜 심바네 차르 넘버체나 동반이 무슨도 또베 이시 닝지 첨부 심베고네 동반이 무슨도 또베 이시데 파체에는 사탕분이 벌써 버시버체 사주바 받아 샤거래셔라 사탕부터 당분 무슨도 또 사탕부체 동반이 엔테네야 고네 고도 펜드 산이 벌써 버시바가 버체 사주바체 엔테네 산케도라 어텔라 사사세데 고 연된 게시 사시던 라와서 사사세 명다라 사시들레테네 지신아텔라 소바 가라주 사야통에 강가텔레테니 기거라 어디나시고 동반이 무슨도 또 배시 텔레테네 산제지 연대 강가 공매 연대 상마 텔레테네 기부여라 대선자 사스입니다 사단자의 연대 탐제기 시선자 산제지 연대 탐제기 시선자 사주세 그 연대 공내 공도 배워잖아요 사단 무상이 사소바 사주버셔 때는 산제죠 어디를 잘 남바시원의 연대지네스 사시고에도 가르스는 연대지 연대 탐제 계획이 무슨 사단 자회나서 시사의 모다 연대 관계 심바다 사이면 왔다 연대인데 신지로 니지 전부라서 관계 심바다 사이 명톱수 사당부를 명지어라 사당부 로치바 팀만 지지 사를 명매자 미세를 어디 명톱수 시에도 명대 시 단도세 다 당분에서 야 어디시 주나
So then we next turn to the presentation of the 10 grounds and looking at the kinds of qualities of those. So first is a general kind of presentation and then the meaning of the various sort of branches of that. And so first then quoting from the auto commentary to the entry to the middle way, this is talking about these kinds of bodhisattva grounds. So we talk about these grounds, the 10 grounds, and really they are, as it explains here, something that is divided, really it is the uncontaminated wisdom of a bodhisattva held by compassion that is divided into various like sort of increments that are given this name of a ground, and they are grounds. They are called that because they are the abode or the place upon which qualities arise. So here when we talk about uncontaminated wisdom, this is referring to the wisdom directly realizing emptiness. There's nothing else that is arising when a bodhisattva is in that kind of meditative equipoise directly realizing emptiness. Nothing else arises. There is no appearance of true existence nor grasping at true existence. There are no afflictions whatsoever. The only thing that appears within that meditative equipoise is emptiness itself. Whereas contaminated wisdom or minds refer to when there is that kind of appearance of true existence and our various afflictive emotions. So here, according to the Prasangikas in particular, that kind of appearance of true existence is referred to as the afflictive obscurations, those kinds of grasping at true existence, but also the very appearance of true existence is asserted to be an afflictive obscuration, whereas what is sort of left over by that, the seeds, the imprints of that are what are known as the obscurations to omniscience, or the knowledge knowledge obscurations. So here within that kind of uncontaminated wisdom of meditative equipoise directly realizing emptiness, there is no appearance of true existence nor grasping at it. And this mind held by compassion, which distinguishes it as belonging to a bodhisattva, because hearers and solitary realizers also have uncontaminated wisdom. However, it is not held with that attitude of compassion. And so if you were to divide those, beginning with the first direct realization of emptiness, that corresponds with the attainment of that first ground. And through the increase, through the development of that, one then divides it by way of the sort of in increments into these 10 grounds. Now, in the same way that we would call a ground something wherein qualities could arise, as in like if you have empty ground, you could plant trees and have all sorts of food and fruits and harvest come forth. So too, it is in dependence upon that mind directly realizing emptiness that all of the qualities of Buddhahood are grown, or they come forth from that. So each, this is then going to be explained by the sort of nature of each of the grounds, what qualities they are infused with, how one attains how that ground attains its particular name, and then giving a teaching on the name of that ground, the meaning of that name. So this is the sort of general explanation.
뭐야, 아니나. 뭐야, 그래서 뭐야. 단니바 지던데 로이스래. 야라도는 스타tambo네. 우마레 주고알 사과메 틴도사.
No.
신나르 차르나바 시원 딘도사르시라. 바데네 카르도스네. 사용호다. 연대 관계 심바 사회 명토스. 아니 명계 때문에 시. 방지 시도 다 당부들에도 당부들 사용호. 녀모모 자기 말을 보다 텐션다 대박차. 그런 게 레바네 삭제시. 진짜서. 레바 대단 대외 신이 사과메 바스. 다 사과메 베시스도 동닝을 숨도 또베. 이시도가 티마도 메도가 신다 sama successido. Tindibasha. That successful Maribe Rabritan Travatagi is Sapa maybe. Ujiro Shila Tone Mayino, Sheson Bashinos. Successful Maribe Rabritan Travatagi is your Mariba. Maribe Rabritan Travatagi. Yamo Tanzigi, Paksala Sobates the Trend of Severa. She Sapa maybe. 동반이 무슨 동계 유지로 실라 때는 마이너 시선 보시는 대야 산제지 사 마도 춘제도 머리배 보사지 레베 셰바 셰바네 말레베 셰바라 대야 산제 마도지 봐도 머리 보사지 괜히 말레베 셰바데 가리오르세나 파고남지 냠샤 동반이 무슨도 또 넘버 메도 베시디 치부레서 와라 파고 남제 냠샤 넘버 메도 베시 민바 메라스 다든다 동반이 무슨도 또 베시 많이 바게 에네테 상미요 마레샤라 상마제 봐도 야 되질라나 더불어 시비는 시거든.
So here, this just for context is within Gyaltsabje's commentary, and so here it says first, sort of explaining the nature of these grounds, that whatever is sort of polluted by grasping this ignorance, afflicted ignorance grasping at true existence, or the kind of imprints of that is considered to be contaminated, right? So that which is freed from that kind of pollution or that kind of stain is considered to be uncontaminated wisdom. Now, this is, as explained from Chandrakirti's clear words. It says here that that which is sort of free of this this like eye disease of ignorance, that kind of wisdom is considered to be uncontaminated, that which is free of the kind of obscuration of ignorance. And so it's not dependent upon the nature of the object, right? It's to do with the nature of that consciousness which is perceiving that. If it is not polluted by, or if it is free from those kinds of contaminations of ignorance, then it is uncontaminated wisdom. It isn't in dependence or contingent upon the nature of the object. And so here, until one obtains the state of Buddhahood, as for wisdom that is not polluted by the imprints of ignorance, there is none other than the non-conceptual wisdom of meditative equipoise of an Arya. So for those ordinary beings, all of our wisdom, all of our minds are contaminated. It is only the kind of meditative equipoise of an Arya that has this kind of uncontaminated wisdom until one reaches the state of Buddhahood. And in that uncontaminated wisdom, it's unpolluted by even the kind of imprints of ignorance. Those aren't manifest at that time.
Oh, yeah. 나도 산재가 살려বে 캠바주 간가 상매를 그러봐 삭제시용 구마라 어디서 캠바 다 사마제 봐도 박배 사 톱차네 사당부 톱차네 동반인 무슨도 또 냠샤에 시시그라 어디 상매를 시거라 디마도 제도 내가 냠샤래야 당차서나 야 동반이 든지수지도 위나라 메다 동에라서 바카르 공부나 삭제 장하래 지성마 삭제 템바트바 나기와라 딘생기 그 레기도 유대 낭친제들 템바트바 나기와라 나란조 강갈티 나기와라 낭친제들 템바트바 나기와라 뭐든지 그 삭제를 치르더라 삭제식도 하더라 녀모 딘생기 그 교연시여나 딘생기 집안에 템바트바 나와요나 니 삭제다르기도 다 박배 냠샤이스티 집을 템바트바 나와요 말어 교연시에 마고 버트레더라 딜라 상메시오데 신다간 거 삭제레디도 뭐야 대야 신디사스 대야 산제제 사마도 춘제도 머리 바샤지 사 머리 바샤지 말레베 이시디 가리오레스 박배 냠샤 남번 메도 비시 집부레셔라 제톱스도 냠샤래야 땅차도 서래 제톱스 동반이 무슨도 또 대도 냠샤러 다 동반이 무슨도 또 어디 봐 샤차도 제톱 삼을탄데 아니야 그래 가서 상매 말했다 동반이 셰기나 사출을 내게 찬주서 동반이 셰기나 동반이 삼을고 그래 무슨도 또요 말아 동반도 되냐 그들 때나 연구하라 어디 인지다 반드시 this was 제도지 내가서 가려서나 제도지 박사지 레버션도 지어서 템바드반지 메팅지기 박사기 레기어서 삭제해서 사튼베 바도니모 젠지 마르베 레버여서 사튼베 바도니모 젠지 마르베 레버여서 사게바 톱사서는 시거라 사게바네 타촌바니라 에네 카르도스네 가촌바니라 테세베스 테세베 테레바 메게 오레 마르베 레바요 마르 박사기 레바요 레 셈브레 마르베 박사기 레바네 요도서 마르베 박사기 레바스 테나데 요사 마르베 박사기 레바스도 어디지구나
So here, all knowledge of a Buddha, the omniscient wisdom of a Buddha is uncontaminated. But for those below the Buddha ground, it is only within the context of meditative equipoise directly realizing emptiness that one can speak of uncontaminated wisdom. Even when, say, someone who has attained the first ground, when they arise out of that meditative equipoise and are in the periods the post-meditative periods or the periods of subsequent attainment, whatever appears as though it's truly established. And so here, even if one has a kind of understanding of emptiness and has attained any of those 10 grounds, still it is the case that within the context of the post-meditative period, one's wisdom is contaminated because of those kinds of imprints of ignorance. So up until the 7th ground, one's mind or that sort of wisdom is polluted by afflictive ignorance. There is the kind of everything that appears as though it is truly existent, and there is the kind of grasping at that. Now, from the 8th ground, so the 8th ground, as well as for those 2 arhats, hearers and solitary realizers, they have exhausted that kind of afflictive ignorance. However, their wisdom is still polluted by the imprints of ignorance. So it's not as though they are still polluted by, defiled by the kind of afflictive ignorance itself, but rather the sort of imprints of that still remain, afflicting the kind of knowledge that they have. And so here it is the case again that all of the kind of wisdom of a Buddha is uncontaminated, but for those still in training, when they are in meditative equipoise directly realizing emptiness, their wisdom is uncontaminated. However, when they arise from that, even though they have knowledge of emptiness, there is still going to be the pollution of that ignorance, either the ignorance itself or the imprints of that ignorance that lead to there being the appearance of true existence.
뭐야, 다 걸렸어.
Nipani.
야, 어디서 다 제도 뒤집어져. 사tin 배바도 녀몽바 챤지 마르베 레바요라. 사제바다 자정바라. 사제바도 자수는 녀몽 반사라. 네 자정바세 태명에도 랑제 자정바니데 롱딜이야 동반이 무슨도 또그라. 어디서 다고 괜히 반사를 쓰거라. 제도도 박사지 레바. 现在给我是真的是，他沙顿别跑到你们就马上回来吧，有些沙顿别跑到你们帮忙上课，你们给来吧的有的是，你们定心是咱的定心给来吧有些，沙顿别跑到你们给马上回来吧有些，沙结巴当查什么你了是沙结巴图书呢，你们帮啥着？你查什么你是的？ 년대 자전보다 랑제 자전보니 라스거라 네 대세베세 니모 방사레스 니모 세사레 딘신 방사레 근데 롱데라 딘신디 니모임바 딘신 니모 샤브레 시두샤마 대세베 대레바 메게스 딘신기 레바 요마르 자좀사로 니 마리 바사지 레바네 요도세 바사지 레바 요레세 자좀보다 사제바 토차네 박사기 레벨도 가르쳐 제도지 내부서 때바주와 나와도 용거라. 대나도 용거라. 박사기 온게. 대나 용거를 스테이션도 어디지 주나. 박사기 레벨에 여도 오서야.
So here, someone who has a bodhisattva who has obtained the 8th ground has then abandoned that kind of afflictive ignorance, again, as well as the hearer and solitary realizer arhats. So they no longer have that kind of grasping at true existence. However, as they are still sort of polluted by the imprints of that ignorance, there still is the appearance of the kind of appearance of true existence. So those 2 arhats and an 8th ground bodhisattva have abandoned the afflictive obscurations, but still have the kind of imprints of those, which are classified as being the obscurations to omniscience, and so therefore still have the appearance of true existence. Whereas for a 7th grounder and below, their pollution is from the actual afflictive ignorance itself. And although that is abandoned at the point of the 8th ground or attaining the state of an arhat, one is still polluted by the kind of imprints of that ignorance.
야, 저 되셔. 다 연대 가르쳐 버렸으나 니지 전부다 연대 자자 중니 소지. 왜네 니베 심바오사. 니지 전부다 연대 사탕부들 소라. 니지 전부다 연대 자자 중니를 소베. 소지 심바오사. 다 숨반에 연대 빌내라. 연대 내섬 대제베나 사시 niebaosa, tatu tamandosa. Yonde sanjeje yonde la soba, tesu samate komanam. Kiwe ne tenchiwe na, sashitan rawa sonda sasming darese. Shibala ya te daros, shibala. Ya wate shikyo na.
So here, then following this outline, it secondly says what qualities are those endowed with or held with. And so secondly, these are sort of endowed with the abilities that come from great compassion, and these qualities that come these 12 sets of qualities, of hundreds of qualities, that referring to the first ground, wherein one has sort of hundreds, and then the power increases more and more. And so that is the kind of qualities with which these various grounds are held. And then and next is how these obtain the title of ground. And that is really because, again, they are the abode or the support for developing qualities, and so therefore that title or that name is affixed to them. And so then the fourth, referring to the sort of meaning of the individual names, is like that, is based upon the kind of qualities that they generate on each of the grounds.
Oh yeah. Tanyiba. Kibana. Ore tande stinjira. Satan tindisasha. Ta rabgala sobe sajosus. Ta satambu rabdo kawaniba tumameba subasi sal ming topjudisheda. Rabgala sobe rabdo kawala sobe sanjosune. Shi gune jobe. Kebara. Tangbonesa satambula yende. Kata chungi se satambutela yende kata chungi se. Nibalaya. Tongda chungi se. Ra. Chungi so yende. Yende je drama kone konde da yende satambu niba sumba shivasi ya tele maru ya kone konde peldo gure sira. Kone konde pewa gosa. Kebari niba nese. Atambu ming mida mada satu wetshira. Yende saru josu sa kebar. Tambu chadasho yende kone konde ya pechi teshe. Tatene kardosina. Sasu negabji. Niba nese sa susu negabji. Changbe sa susu negabji. Tima chungwe topda. Lam trebe. Top kone kondo. Pewa. Tupudu chungwa. Kone kondo tobas. Te yendente kone kondo ya pewa tobureshe. Tupudu chungwa. Ni kebar sumba de karate kebar niba tichara. Kebar sumba ne sa tambu chimbe parshin lakpache. Sa niba liya chudimji parshin lakpaso. Parshin lakpa kebar kone kondo pewa. Kebar shiba ne sa tambu zambulin la wangata. Sa nibe lingshi la wangala soba tinde kolo kebe kebu turto uyara. Wangwe kewa so namiji kewa kone kondo pewe kewa. Namiji kewa zambulin la lingshi la wangala soba tinde kolo kebe kebu ke. Sikanto udesi wara. 사대다자 제도다 제발라 제발 인지 냠샴버시라 제발은 마이노 뒤사대 냠샤이시 찍고를 사당부식 말해서 사당부 제도 이시도 줄래 사당부세고 그래서 디나시 산이벌에 냠샤다 제도 이가 용구로 대산이벌 사고 그래서 대다자 제도다 제발라 제발 인지 냠샴버시라 제발 미노스 어디 사당부 냠샤이시대 사당부래 제도 이시대 사당부래서 냠샤 동반 연구소도 또 붙이불 사실 말해서 대내급 제도 내급들에 산이바 와서라 대연대도 산이베 연대세 그래서 어디지라
So then, as for how these individually the very joyful and stuff and so forth are posited, so referring to the individual grounds, very joyful and stainless and luminous and radiant and so forth as we go through each of these grounds. Now here it then describes how it is the case that these are sort of distinct, they're posited as distinct grounds because of various kinds of distinctions. They are defined as distinct grounds by means of these various features, we could say. And so on the first distinctive feature arises on the basis of progressive increment in the number of qualities that exists. So on the first ground, one has a set of qualities, 12 qualities that are 100-fold. And then on the second ground, it's 1,000-fold and so forth. And so they are defined as distinct by that incremental increase in the kinds of qualities, the progressive number of qualities that one has on that ground. And then the second kind of feature that distinguishes them is the ever increasing enhancement of excellent powers with respect to being able to cleanse pollutants and traverse the path. And so this kind of excellent power in terms of being able to get rid of negative qualities or pollutants and being able to enhance and develop positive qualities, traversing the path, that kind of excellent power increases more and more. And then we have the third sort of feature is excellence with respect to the perfections. So, for example, on the first ground, there is a sort of surpassing excellence in terms of generosity, and then excellence in terms of the perfection of ethical conduct on the second ground, and so forth. And so that's a third feature. And the fourth feature refers to the kind of ever-enhancing fruitional effects, as in the ripening results that come forth from one's practice increase more and more. So on the first ground, being born as, say, a monarch that rules over the earth, and then on the second ground, being born as a monarch that reigns over the 4 continents, being a wheel-turning king, and so forth, that is ever increasing more and more. And so here, it is also important to remember that these grounds don't only refer to the periods of meditative equipoise, when one is formally in that kind of equipoise, directly realizing emptiness, but also are in reference to the times of post-meditation. Those periods as well are counted in the ground. So it isn't just as though the first ground is only that meditative equipoise, but it also includes those periods of post-meditation.
뭐야 그래서 야 뭐야 떠지나
So I think that will do it for today, as we are at our time.
뭐야 안 돼서
Yeah, Jigsaw.
뭐야
Thank you for these teachings today. And Katrina, thank you for your very clear translation. We'll finish with some dedication prayers now.
May the spiritual teachers lead on the secret path, and those spiritual friends who practice the path of life. May I pacify completely all our inner hindrances. Grant such inspiration, I pray. May the lives of the venerable spiritual mentors be stable, and their virtuous actions spread in the 10 directions. May the light of love song's teachings dispelling the darkness of the beings in the 3 worlds always increase. Iram Guru Namalakam Niritayanami. Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May the form have no decline, but increase forevermore.
Ja, ja.
Recording stop.